Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Josh Schaefer, joined today by the new general manager of the Los Angeles Kings, Ken Holland. Ken, first of all, congratulations and welcome. What's this last week or so been like for you when you came to ultimately accept the new opportunity?
Well, it's been hectic. Obviously when LA got bounced out by Edmonton, and I'm surprised to see Rob Blake step down. Next day or two, I got a call from Luke. I came in, spent the day with Luke and Dan Beckerman, and then over the course of the next few days, talked back and forth, and ultimately came to the decision that this would be a great spot for me personally, and a great spot for us, my wife and I, personally and professionally. So excited to be here. LA Kings have a great brand, great history, and hopefully we can, over the next few years here, try to add to it.
What was that first conversation with Luc Robitaille like for you when you got the call?
Well, the good news is Luc was a player of mine back in 2001 when I signed him as an unrestricted free agent from LA, and he played with us 01, 02, and 02, 03. We won the Cup in 02. So I've had a relationship with Luc that goes back 20 years. And, we obviously had a player-GM relationship back then. So Luc asked me if I had the energy and the desire to come back. I told him I did. I'd been watching a lot of hockey. I missed being in the game. From a general manager perspective, Gary Bettman and Colin Campbell had allowed me to work for Hockey Ops, but was missing being in the saddle, I guess, per se. And but it had to fit for the LA Kings too. So I come down, like I said, and spent a day and a half with Dan and Luc, and here I am.
Now, you had mentioned in your introductory press conference that when you left Edmonton, it was 4 days before the draft. So how important is it for you to be here so quickly to get going, as every day that passes is a day closer to free agency, a day closer to the draft?
Well, the good news is when I got hired in 2019 at Edmonton, it was May the 7th. So this is within a week. So I understand the time frame. First order, I got to meet some people. I got to meet all the people. I got an opportunity to spend an hour and a half with Anze Kopitar yesterday, an hour and a half with Drew Doughty. Spent a couple of hours with Jim Hiller. Obviously spent lots of time with Luc Robitaille. Some time this morning with Assistant General Manager Nelson Emerson. And it's been a whirlwind. You're just going around and meeting people. And then I know I've got to reach out and talk to other general managers. I got to talk to agents. There's decisions that have got to be made. Most of these decisions come, near the middle to the end of June through early July. The draft decisions, the signing of your own players, restricted or unrestricted, if you got any trade conversations, free agency. So we do have some time, but we got to get at it.
I do want to ask you about that, but first, you had mentioned before that you had some conversations with some other clubs. So when it comes to LA, why the LA Kings and why now for you?
I think there's a whole lot of reasons. Great ownership, stable franchise, my relationship with Luc Robitaille, the team, the leadership on the team. Kopitar, Kempe, Doughty, some good young players coming through. I'm born and raised in British Columbia. I'm a Midwestern guy. Obviously spent a lot of years in Detroit. We have a son in Chicago. It's west. When we go on a road trip, my wife can jump on a plane. There's in the winter there's flights into Kelowna, BC, where we have our house. Flights to Calgary for her to go see our daughters and grandchildren. So the LA brand, the King brand. It's Los Angeles. It's one of the great sports cities in the world. And I don't think there was any. And then the team. It's a really good hockey team that we've got to try to make some moves to continue for it to be a good hockey team, and see if we can grow it and add it and build it.
22 years in Detroit, and of course the success stories. That speaks for itself. But you had said about your time in Detroit that when you had your first general manager opportunity with the Red Wings. You were inheriting a team that had just won the Stanley Cup with a real core. And now the Kings did not just win the Stanley Cup, but it seems like a rebuild is not necessary, maybe some very specific tinkering. So what is your assessment of the group overall, and what approach do you take to inheriting a group that has a good structure already and pushing them to the next level?
Well, first off, I would say that at the end of the regular season, I think the Kings finished 6th overall in points. And with the moves that Ron Blake made, Darcy Kemper's a finalist for the Vezina Trophy, and Gavrikov and Fogel, and I think what Kuzmenko did. I would say that when the playoffs started, this was a team that, had they have beaten Edmonton, lots of people wouldn't have been surprised. Right. So they didn't beat Edmonton, but you can't just judge everything on 4 games. They're up 2-0. So they had a 4-game losing streak. So I think it's a really good hockey team. But you got to go do it all. What we were able to do in Detroit and actually started in Edmonton, you got to do it year after year after year after year. You got to be in the playoffs. You got to build. You got to grow. So we got to make sure we do our work this summer. The most important thing over 82 games is to qualify. And then things have got to happen in there internally, growth of some kids, maybe a move or addition at the trade deadline. But ultimately, you got to win enough games over 82 games to be in the playoffs. And then you got to try all over again. And that's what the LA Kings have got to do. I've got to kind of oversee a nice summer. There's lots of pieces. There's a good core. There's some young people that can get better. See if we can do something to add to make it a little bit different, and then do it all over again.
I'm curious because, like we just said, you're inheriting a team that has its structure and has been built by somebody else and other people around the organization. But also, you want to come in and leave an imprint yourself. How do you find a balance between those two things?
Well, I just want to win, so I'll only make an imprint if I think it's going to be. I'm not just looking to do something so that somebody can say it's different. I mean, if we have the same team, we win the Stanley Cup, I'm thrilled. And it could be Rob Blake's team. I don't think it matters. I'm not looking to come in, and I'm looking to see over the course of time, with all these meetings and conversations and talking to GMs and talking to the LA, the pro scouts and the scouting department and the people that we've got there, and Jim Hiller, and I've talked to a few players, and then my experience, my assessment that somewhere down the road, and is somewhere down the road 2 weeks or somewhere down the road a year, I don't know. I got to, when at the right time, when the right situation comes in, be prepared to move to try to make your team a little bit better. So I'm in the assessment mode, really. I know that they had a great year. The team knows how to check, which is really, really important. Got a goalie that's in the finalist for the Vezina Trophy. Those are lots of assets to work with. Now let me dig in here and go to work with these people and see what we think we need to do over the next 6 to 7 weeks.
I got to imagine after 22 years with the Red Wings and then going to Edmonton and kind of inheriting that group and now taking them to the next level, it had to have been very different for you after the 22 years in Detroit. And when you were there for the 5 years, what did you learn about how to take that group to the next level, and now what can you take into this opportunity with LA?
Well, I'm going to call it as building. Like the team that's in Edmonton, or that we finished with, because obviously there's some new players in Edmonton now this year but the team that finished in Game 7 last year against Florida, from when I took over 5 years ago, other than maybe Connor, Leon, Nugent Hopkins, Darnell Nurse, trying to think, it was a completely new team. We had to, part of it was some players were already drafted. The growth of McLeod, the growth of Stu Skinner. We drafted Holloway, we drafted Broberg, and grew. And so I got to get to know the young players here. Some of this solution might be in Ontario, or might be out and playing junior in college. but they're 2 years away. But they're going to be a piece of the growth of this franchise, because you want to be in the playoffs every year, and ultimately you then want to win playoff rounds. And I think that we had a hard time getting over the hurdle in the early 90s in Detroit, and finally once you started to get over the hump, you started to understand as an organization, as a manager, as a coach, as a players, what you got to do to be successful. We went through the same process in Edmonton, lost in the first round to Chicago, lost in the first round to Winnipeg, but you stuck with it, and you keep putting yourself back in those situations. That's what's got to happen here. It could have happened here 2 weeks ago. Right. They were up 2-0 on Edmonton, and certainly looked like they were on their way to the second round. And 8 days, 4 games in 8 days, the whole narrative changes. So, you want to play back into that same opportunity next year, and part of it is the growth of some young players. It can't be that the manager is going to make some massive blockbuster trade or some free agent signing. It might happen, but that's not the only. Odds are it's not going to happen. It's got to be brick by brick. It's like you're building a house. It's brick by brick by brick by brick by brick. And when you look at the Edmonton Oilers of 2025 in June or 24 versus 19, it was almost a completely different team twice over, because we brought in some people and we changed the growth of some people. So it's going to be no different in LA. It's just going to be trying to make some decisions and the growth of some people internally.
So the salary cap's going up. The Kings should have space. Yeah. There are also some players who were here that are now unrestricted free agents. What's your approach to communicating with them, and then also playing the free agent market as well?
Well, first off, I want to talk to the people that are here, what they think about those players that are unrestricted free agents. The coach, Luc Robitaille, Nelson Emerson, and talk to and I've got my own thoughts. You've got to talk to the agent, and then see where it goes. In the meantime, do all our planning. You can't just have plan A. You got to have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, plan F, because there's 31 other teams out there, and things can kind of come at you, and you got to shift from this plan to that plan. So you just got to do all your work, do all your preparation. Over the next week to 10 days, I will probably expect to talk to probably the other 31 managers in the league about what they might be thinking, if anybody's looking to make any moves via trade. And, we obviously have the unrestricted free agent list. Everybody's got that. Some of those players are going to sign between now, but some of them are going to hit the market. So you just got to make sure you do all your work. And if an unrestricted free agent that we have interest signs, you wipe them off your list, and you got to keep moving on. You can't just shut down operations because that player's not there. You got to be able to go in a lot of different directions.
Well, Ken, we're excited to have you here. Congratulations. Welcome to LA, and good luck.
Thanks. Yeah, excited myself. Look forward to working with you.